You can have 2 minutes of...
Thank you. Mr Pizzula, in relation to the 457 visas, I get one particular mob of, in one specialist field saying that there's 300-400 of them available for work in Australia, but the department's still bringing more in on 457 visas. Who assesses this, or who makes a decision that says, OK, I've got enough Australians to fill a job, we won't issue any more 457 visas? Is it the minister? Is it the department? Who actually goes through that work?
Mr Wilden touched on that earlier. I might just ask him to go back to his earlier evidence and perhaps add to it.
Senator, so each application goes through the phase of you need first of all the sponsor, who is the employer. So we check who they are, if they have a record of previous sponsorship, etc., or if it's their first time. When they then apply for the visa, they have to do a nomination, which is telling us what the job is, telling us what they're going to pay them, and then you go to the visa stage where you tell us who the person is, etc. So there's several checkpoints within that. I think it's worth referring to the fact that a fairly significant and broad review was done of the 457 program led by John Azarias about 3 years ago, which looked at a lot of these issues. And one of the challenges, I think, is always the anecdote versus the evidence. We certainly do a lot of checking along the way around it's a genuine job, that the person coming has the skills that and occupational qualifications that they need to do that job. And where we do find there is a mismatch or someone hasn't been truthful along the way, appropriate remediation action is taken.
Do you do the checking where those jobs can be filled by Australians first?
As part of the process, they have to describe their workforce, the number of Australians, and depending on whether labour market testing is applying or not. In some occupations, it's mandatory labour market testing, which means you have to provide quite a lot of evidence that you have been to the labour market or not. But every single employer who hires an overseas worker on a 457 has to make an attestation that they have looked at the Australian labour market and that they have been unable to source an Australian worker.
Is that right?
That's correct.
That's very interesting to know. Thank you for that.